what to do. We're gonna have systems in place that are easier to learn. All right, complicated to the defense or offense that they're going against, or the special teams group that they're going against, but easy for us to learn. Because when we can when we can learn our system and we can get good at our system, then our talent can take over. Less thinking equals talent take over, but we need to have systems in place, and we will have systems in place to do so. As far as the starter, haven't really thought about that yet, and naming a starter, that hasn't even crossed my mind. Again, just trying to evaluate the players on our team and get the staff together.
Ryan Clark joining us. Nick Sirianni taking over a team that ranks 24th in total offense. I see those eyes, Rye. Max, he's not worried about who's going to be quarterback, obviously. We'll just keep it on Ryan's face.
Hasn't crossed his mind.
I mean, he's not. That hasn't even crossed his mind for 1 second who might possibly be the quarterback. Did you want to jump in here, Stephen A?
Yeah. I'm saying, Max, would you mind if I led this conversation, Max? Because I don't have much to say, but would you mind if I take over? The best thing you could say about Nick Sirianni's press conference is that he wasn't exactly like Adam Gase, who showed up to the Jets press conference looking high. Now, you couldn't say that, but let's be honest. Didn't the thought cross our minds? He looked like a deer in headlights. I don't know what the hell he was talking about. He was mumbling his words. I agree with my colleague at the Philadelphia Daily News, Marcus Hayes, where he talked about him lying. You didn't even think about the starting quarterback. The thought never even crossed your mind. You took the Eagles' job. You interviewed for the Eagles' job. You took the Eagles' job. Oh, by the way, your former boss in Indianapolis, who's the head coach there, where was he before? He was in Philadelphia as your offensive coordinator / quarterback coach, guiding them to a Super Bowl championship with a backup in Nick Foles. And you take this job after working under him, and it never crossed your mind about whether or not Carson Wentz or Jalen Hurts would be your starter. You didn't even cross it. As Marcus Hayes pointed out, you lied. And Philadelphia, better than most places, has a BS meter that, they can pick up on it like clockwork. And this is a bad start for him. And all I'm going to say before handing it to you, Max, is this. As a guy that worked in Philadelphia for 17 years for the Philadelphia Inquirer, when you are a head coach and you're the man assigned to talk to the media on a daily basis, and you come across as that, my prayers are officially extended to Nick Sirianni, because my goodness, are you going to need all the prayers you can get, because this was a horrible start, and the media in Philadelphia is going to be waiting for this man on a daily basis for the foreseeable future. If there was ever a press conference that you did not want to show up unprepared for, it was that one. Good luck to that, brother.
How does Nick Sirianni look after his first news conference? Like a puppet. Like a puppet. That's what he looks like. This is the Mike McCarthy situation in Dallas on steroids. Just like I said, Jerry Jones isn't going to hire anybody. We had Jimmy Johnson on the show. Really, the Cowboys are suffering from the curse of Jimmy Johnson. Won a couple Super Bowls, got too much credit. Jerry's ego couldn't handle it. Got rid of him, bring in Switzer, won with Johnson's players, and never since then, right? And since then has avoided, with the exception of Parcells briefly, the big personality, man in charge who would get credit. And it seems to me what's going on in Philadelphia is a version of that, but on steroids. It's not so much about the ego and getting the credit. It's that Jeffrey Lurie, the owner, and Howie Roseman, the GM, want someone they can control, period. According to that same Marcus Hayes column in the Philadelphia Inquirer, Stephen A., published yesterday, I suggest people check it out. He said that after 5 years of Peterson taking his orders, he came at them with, hey, I'd like to choose my own personnel, or at least decide when and where, who's going to play what. And a couple weeks later, he's gone. He's gone. As soon as he stopped being a puppet, he was gone. And what I say about Peterson's press conferences last year, especially as it pertained to Carson Wentz, I told you, it sounded like he didn't have autonomy. It sounds like he couldn't make decisions. That's what's going on. Dysfunction always starts at the very top. You want to see a dysfunction? And Jeffrey Lurie's been praised oftentimes as a great owner in American team sports. He's lost that distinction. This is a debacle at this point. And you can see that they hired a guy who was not at liberty even to make decisions about basic stuff pertaining to the team. When Peterson finally wanted control back because the Carson Wentz thing went off the rails, they got rid of him. They replaced him with a guy who they believe they can control. And the first press conference sends a message to Eagles fans loud and clear. They found their man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so this is the reason, too, we pay more attention to press conferences this year than we have in years past. And you hate to bring this name up every time a coaching vacancy is filled, but it's Eric Bieniemy. Because you think about some of the press conferences we've seen him in. You think about some of the post-game interviews when you look back to after the Super Bowl when asked by, I believe it's Steve Weiss, about what that meant to Andy Reid. You think about all the things his players say as a leader, as a communicator, as a builder of men. And so now when we see these other guys, these other coaches who get these jobs, we say to ourselves, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to learn why this dude was so much better than Eric Bieniemy, why this dude is the pick for this job. And we've bit off kneecaps and we've knocked out teeth and now we've written statements to give and we don't even know the statement. Now, here's what I know about football coaches, and I played for a coach who wasn't necessarily a great communicator publicly. He also wasn't a great communicator privately. That team was really bad, and when I was done with that team continued to be bad, and I thought that was a part of it, the leadership, the galvanizing the troops, as Stephen A. often mentions. And so when I hear him speak, like I know this. If I asked Stephen A. to speak about journalism, if I ask him to speak about broadcasting, if I ask Max to do the same, speak about boxing, if I ask Molly to speak about hosting, y'all don't need a sheet to tell me how y'all feel about that. Y'all don't need a sheet to tell me about the way you go about your day to excel at that job. If you ask me about football, all the reasons I love it, why I approached it the way I did, why I see it the way I see it, I could talk to you for 4 hours and I would never need a piece of paper. And if I was going to get the opportunity to take over a job where they had a quarterback controversy, whether I had autonomy or not, I would have an answer because I know you're going to ask me that. A huge part of being a head coach is being prepared. And though he had a sheet to read, I don't know if it was written by him or written by his agents, he wasn't prepared. And you better be prepared in Philly when you're taking over a bad team. You're taking over a team that's cap-strapped. You're taking over a team that has a quarterback controversy. You're taking over a team in a city where people don't like BS, where people don't deal with losers well. And the first time you come off as a loser. Now, Darius Leonard came to this guy's defense. I think I saw Torrey Smith say something. Not having a great initial press conference doesn't make you a bad football coach. It doesn't mean that this team can't excel under your tutelage, under your leadership. But it sure as hell is a bad start when you're coming into a situation where you're replacing a head coach who already won a Super Bowl. And now you know, and now the rumors come out and the reports come out that that coach wanted to move on to a different quarterback. And they said, oh, no, you can't make that decision. We got two different things happening in the NFL right now. The Philadelphia Eagles chose Carson Wentz over their coach. The Los Angeles Rams chose their coach over their quarterback. Now we're going to get to see in 2021 who was right.
Well, that much is true. And you know what? And I don't have a problem. As much of a talent-based guy as I am, Ryan, I don't have a problem with Los Angeles picking their coach over their quarterback because you have a coach that's won 67% of his games over a 4-year period. I don't have a problem with that. I had a problem with Doug Peterson not being chosen over Carson Wentz because of things that Max and others had said as it pertained to Carson Wentz being a bit hard-headed, having a license to circumvent the coach. And then when you do your homework and you learn even further that, again, Doug Peterson wanted to be his own man. He was speaking up for himself. He wanted to pick his own staff, et cetera, et cetera. I am shocked that the Jeffrey Lurie that I knew, that I've known from the Philadelphia Eagles, when Andy Reid was there, and we know that Andy Reid is his own man. I am shocked that Jeffrey Lurie appears to be a guy, according to the reports, that him alongside Howie Roseman wants to pick your staff, wants to tell you who to play, wants to do all of these different things. That's not the Jeffrey Lurie I know. It's not the Jeffrey Lurie that I've spoken to throughout the years, even though we haven't spoken in a few years. That's not the guy that I knew covering the Philadelphia Eagles for the Philadelphia Inquirer and Philadelphia Sports for that newspaper. That's not him. So to hear that this is what they wanted from Peterson, to hear that other dudes were passed up because they were their own men and they were not going to be, the Josh McDaniels, the Todd Bowles, the Eric B. Enemies of the world, were not going to be told what to do at every single turn. And that Nick Sirianni is the guy that's there now, and this is the reason why. It's kind of surprising to me that Jeffrey Lurie would allow or even implement, be an instigator of that kind of leadership, Max.
That's right. That's right, because Lurie had, as you point out, as someone who covered him up close, but even just nationally, had a sterling reputation. Lurie's considered one of the best owners. I don't think we could say that anymore. I don't think that's the perception at this moment. And think about what a bad spot the Eagles are now in with Carson Wentz. Whatever you want to say about Goff, maybe he didn't hit Wentz's highs as an individual performer. We never looked at him and said, that's the best player in the league, as we briefly did with Wentz several years ago at this point. But Goff was more consistent. Goff made 2 Pro Bowls. Goff got to a Super Bowl, and he had a big contract. He didn't disintegrate the fabric of the team, and yet they just traded 2 firsts and a third and Goff for Stafford, who's talented, but ain't Deshaun Watson exactly, right? And by the way, also reports that they were making a run at Aaron Rodgers, couldn't get him, went to Stafford. What does this mean for the Eagles? They held on to Carson Wentz for so long. If it takes you 2 firsts and a third to get out of Goff's deal, what's it going to take to get out of Wentz's deal? Because one thing we see, the offense works better with Jalen Hurts, clearly. Not close.
Let me hand this over to you, Ryan, by saying this. And Max, you'll appreciate this as well. If there indeed is that change that has taken place in Philadelphia, it has to be the curse of Chip Kelly. Remember, Chip Kelly comes on board. It's an absolute disaster, but Howie Roseman was moved out of the mix to give that power to Chip Kelly. So once Jeffrey Lurie made that mistake, rather than remembering what he had with Andy Reid, unfortunately, it appears, I don't know, but it appears he's remembered more what he had with Chip Kelly. So he brings Howie Roseman back into the mix. And since he handed that control back to Howie Roseman, after once confiscating it from him, he feels beholden to Howie Roseman, what Howie Roseman wants to do, even if that means usurping the authority and circumventing the head coach. That appears to be what the problem is, guys, based on what y'all are breaking down to me. And then, in fairness to you, Max, what you've been
I think
saying
that analysis is probably right.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, that's a huge issue, though, right? Because you feel that in the locker room. The players understand that. The players understand when the coach isn't making the final call, when the coach doesn't have the final decision on who plays and who doesn't. Because when that coach has the pulse of the team, he understands who can help me win. And we heard Jason Kelce say it during the season. If we are making decisions that are not based on winning football, and if you go back to now Carson Wentz or to Roseman and Lurie choosing Carson Wentz over Doug Peterson, that's not a winning football decision. Picking a coach that can be your puppet, picking a coach that you can manipulate, that's not a winning decision. And as these decisions begin or continue to be made, and you heard Mac talk about disintegrating the fabric of a team, this is how you disintegrate the fabric of an organization. This is how you find yourself in a spot not winning for years. And that's where the Eagles are headed.
It could be, guys. It could be that when Jason Kelce was going off, because remember, they all had a lot of love for Peterson when they were when they won that Super Bowl. They had a lot of love for him when they were going to the postseason. All of a sudden, they speak out. Guess what? Maybe they weren't speaking about Peterson at all. Maybe they were speaking about upstairs.
Fair enough. All right, let's keep it moving.